Across social media and frontline reports from Ukraine, a bizarre new vehicle has begun to appear, sparking a mixture of ridicule and intense analysis. They've been nicknamed turtle tanks or barns on tracks. At their core, these are familiar main battle tank chassis, often from older T-72s. But their most defining feature is what's missing. The turret and its powerful main gun have been completely removed. In its place, we see a crude, angular superstructure, a shell of welded steel plates hastily fabricated in field workshops, completely enclosing the top of the hull. This metal shell is often just the first layer of defense. It's frequently augmented with screens of chain-link fencing and dense webs of barbed wire. The goal of this ad hoc armor isn't to stop a warhead, but to trigger it prematurely, disrupting the precise jet of molten metal from a shaped charge. Complementing these physical barriers are an array of electronic warfare antennas. These jammers broadcast powerful radio signals, flooding the control frequencies used by drone operators in a desperate attempt to sever the link and send the incoming threat tumbling from the sky. These strange, lumbering beasts, these Frankentanks, are not a sign of madness. They are a desperate yet logical evolutionary response to a fundamental shift in modern ground combat. The catalyst for this change is the ubiquitous presence of the first-person view, or FPV, drone. Once a tool for hobbyists and racers, these small, agile quadcopters, when armed with a simple anti-tank grenade, have become one of the most lethal and cost-effective weapons on the battlefield. For the cost of a few $100s, they can hunt and destroy vehicles worth millions. Their proliferation has made traditional armored tactics, like massed frontal assaults, exceptionally perilous. The battlefield is now transparent from above. A swarm of FPV drones can saturate defenses and hunt down individual vehicles with terrifying precision. For nearly a century, tank design has prioritized thick frontal armor to win head-on engagements. But the FPV drone doesn't play by those rules. It can strike from any direction, the sides, the rear, and most critically, from directly above. This top attack profile is a tank's Achilles heel, targeting the thin roof armor over the crew, engine, and ammunition compartments, areas never designed to withstand a direct anti-tank hit. This simple change in attack geometry nullifies decades of armor development. The psychological impact on armored crews is immense. The persistent high-pitched whine of a nearby drone is a constant source of dread. This omnipresent aerial threat means there is no truly safe rear area. A tank crew can be targeted while resupplying, undergoing maintenance, or simply waiting for orders, leading to crippling stress and exhaustion. In response, a frantic race of adaptation is underway on both sides. We've seen the evolution from early improvised cope cages welded on top of turrets to more sophisticated slat armor. But as the drones and their operators have become more skilled, these half measures have proven insufficient. The attackers simply find the gaps. Removing the turret entirely is the next, most radical step in this evolutionary chain. It is a profound admission that, for certain missions, the tank's main gun is less valuable than the sheer survivability of its heavily armored chassis. Their new primary role is not to fight other tanks, but to function as heavily protected assault transports, or battle taxis, tasked with breaching defenses and delivering infantry squads directly onto an objective, surviving the lethal, drone-infested journey across no man's land. To truly grasp this development, one must look past the crude appearance and consider the brutal strategic realities of the war. Open-source intelligence confirms that Russia has suffered staggering losses in armored vehicles. This high rate of attrition forces commanders to be resourceful. They are pulling damaged and obsolete tanks from long-term storage, vehicles whose turrets or fire control systems may be beyond repair. For these zombie tanks, conversion into a turretless transport is a way to return a valuable, heavily armored asset to the fight. This is a story about the fundamental principles of warfare being rewritten in real time. The classic triangle of armored design, firepower, mobility, and protection, has been violently disrupted by the drone. In the chapters ahead, we will dissect the technology that forced this change, explore why the T-72 is the primary candidate for this surgery, weigh the stark advantages and crippling disadvantages of these conversions, and ask the most important question: is this a temporary, desperate measure, or are we witnessing the dawn of a new era in armored warfare? This is the new reality of the 21st century battlefield. Since 2022, Russia has suffered catastrophic armored losses. The initial phases of the war saw heavy attrition, a trend that has continued unabated across the entire front. Open-source intelligence trackers, using geolocated visual evidence, have confirmed thousands of tanks, IFVs, and APCs destroyed, damaged, or captured. The primary driver of this attrition is the small, inexpensive FPV drone. Estimates suggest these systems now account for over 65% of armor kills, an unsustainable rate for any military. Costing just a few $100s, they deliver an anti-tank warhead with pinpoint accuracy to a tank's vulnerable top armor or engine deck. Russia's vast Soviet-era inventory was seen as a strategic cushion, but even with thousands of vehicles in storage, this reserve has proven insufficient to absorb the sheer pace of losses. As a result, reserves were tapped. Modernized T-62S from the 1960s, and even 1,950 S-era T-55S were pulled from storage, refurbished, and sent to fill the growing gaps. While useful at times, these vintage tanks are glaringly vulnerable. Their rudimentary armor offers little protection against modern ATGMs and is easily penetrated by FPV drones. More critically, the depletion of modern T-72B3S, T-80 BVMs, and T-90Ms has created a severe capability gap. This isn't just the loss of a tank, it's the loss of advanced thermal optics and long-range precision. Meanwhile, Russia's defense industry cannot replace losses at scale. Hampered by sanctions on critical microelectronics, production of new advanced tanks is limited, falling far short of the monthly loss rate. This pressure has forced a tactical shift. In high-threat sectors like Pokrovsk, large-scale mechanized assaults have become too costly, as armored columns are systematically dismantled by drones and guided artillery. The alternative is to preserve armor by relying on infantry-heavy assaults. This saves vehicles, but produces horrific casualties as soldiers advance with limited support. It is within this desperate context that these turretless conversions have appeared. They seek a middle ground, a way to move troops under armor without risking a fully functional main battle tank. The goal is to get soldiers across the deadly last mile to an assault position alive, without exposing the dwindling combat-ready fleet to the omnipresent drone threat. This improvisation is a tacit admission that in drone-saturated zones, the main battle tank can no longer perform its intended role of shock assault. The risk of loss is simply too high. The conversion is a symptom of a larger problem: losses and technological overmatch. So why the T-72 hull? The answer lies in its availability and a notorious design flaw. Understanding that flaw explains the drastic choice to remove the tank's most powerful feature, its turret, entirely. The T-72 is abundant, tens of thousands built, making hulls readily available. But its autoloader stores ammunition under the turret, a jack-in-the-box hazard. Remove turret and ammo. Remove the primary catastrophic vulnerability. Survivability against certain hits rises markedly. Deleting several tons of turret mass offsets added armor and cages. Freed space is reconfigured to carry a small squad. A welded superstructure creates standoff to blunt-shaped charges. Reactive armor disrupts incoming jets and reduces penetration. Wire aims to snag drones or force premature detonation. Spikes further complicate direct hits from FPVs. Jammers broadcast noise to break pilot links and navigation. Physical and electronic layers combine to raise overall survival odds. These are ad hoc builds with little standardization. Quality and effectiveness vary widely by unit resources and skill. The outcome is awkward yet purposeful, a heavy battle taxi. It recycles a flawed platform into a mobile shelter against drones. Abundance plus flaw, removed vulnerability, and layered defenses make the T-72 a logical, if crude, choice. But logic on paper meets hard limits on the ground. IFVs like the BMP carry troops well, but their thin armor, designed for a past era, offers limited protection against modern FPV drones and ATGMs. They are dangerously outmatched. Even more fragile are older platforms like the BTR, which are little more than lightly armored taxis on a battlefield saturated with these threats. A tank hull's armor is far more robust. Its multi-layered composite and reactive armor was designed to defeat powerful anti-tank weapons. Even without its turret, the chassis retains this fundamental protection. An imperfect hit from a drone that would shred an IFV might merely detonate an ERA block on a T-72, making it a more survivable platform. The turretless T-72 is thus a heavy assault transport, not an IFV replacement. It is a specialized tool, a battle taxi of last resort. Its singular goal: get troops through the drone-patrolled no man's land alive, sacrificing all other functions for this one purpose. But this solution creates severe problems. Mobility is poor and fuel use is high. The immense weight increases ground pressure, making the vehicle prone to getting stuck in Ukraine's notorious mud. Its bulk also limits maneuverability, forcing it onto predictable, easily ambushed routes. Egress is awkward and incredibly risky. Lacking a rear ramp, soldiers must climb out of top hatches, fully exposed to fire. They scramble over a hot engine deck in welded-on cages. This slow, clumsy process occurs at the most dangerous moment of an assault. Stripped of its main gun and often its cokes, the transport cannot suppress enemy positions. This breaks a key tenet of combined arms. Dismounts lose critical supporting fires from their own vehicle at the decisive moment, leaving them isolated and vulnerable as soon as they hit the ground. The added weight also creates a maintenance nightmare, stressing the engine, gearbox, and suspension, which raises the risk of a breakdown in a kill zone. As field modifications, improvised welds and inconsistent electronics are prone to failure under the extreme stress of combat. From premier armor to scrap-welded transports, this conversion signals deep strain. It reveals a commander's dilemma: conserve their few remaining expensive tanks, yet still find a way to move infantry forward. This is their desperate compromise. The balance of protection, mobility, and firepower is being redefined by these omnipresent aerial threats. Future vehicles need layered defenses: electronic warfare, active protection systems, and counter-drone tools. Simply adding more armor is no longer the answer. The turretless tank is a crude early response to drone-dominated battlefields. It shows how fast doctrine shifts when technology upends the rules. Armies that adapt survive. In Ukraine, that lesson is being written in steel, wire, and signal noise.